Right. In the first place, I spoke to this wonderful lady, Jennifer Griffiths, last week. She's head of a group called ExcludedUK. And we had such an enormous response that I said we'd do an entire hour on this. So, Jennifer, welcome back.
Hi, Carol. Thanks for having us back again.
Well, it's important, and the response was enormous. And it's not surprising if nearly 4 million grown-ups, 4 million adults were involved. That's a massive proportion of workers. So just explain again who these people are, Jennifer.
Okay. There's 3.8 million UK taxpayers, which is 10% of the working population of the UK, which is more than the population of Wales.
Yeah.
And through no fault of their own, they did not fulfil the criteria of the schemes that the government put in place. Now, excuse me, the support schemes that were granted were fabulous. We can't take that away. They were very generous. They were delivered very quickly, and amazing for the 90% of people who got them. However, there were small businesses, be that limited company directors, but there are also people newly self-employed, PAYE freelancers, new starters, those denied furlough, people made redundant before the 19th of March 2020, people on maternity, parental or adoption leave, war veterinary pensioners, the people with bereavement allowance, carers allowance, students, and then the WASPy women who've got the double whammy of having the issue with their pensions, and also those that were excluded. And I think you read out Gail's message. She was an educational examiner, and she's hit by both things. So as a result of these people not qualifying, we totally got it in the first few weeks. Crikey, who expects to have a global pandemic and have to look after the whole country and shut huge, great pockets of the industry down? But it became very apparent very quickly that Rishi Sunak and his team had not included us and were not intending to include us. So brought it to their attention, gave them several options on how this thing could be remedied, because some of the situations are not easy fixes. They're quite intricate. However, HMRC holds everybody's details of what tax they have paid. So they could have paid in proportion to everybody, but no, they didn't want to do that. So what resulted in that was we had people, Rishi Sunak back these bounce back loans. Well, the key is in the title. It's a loan, it's a debt.
Yes.
So it's hanging, and people are really struggling, They had to take out overdrafts, credit card debts, loans from family and friends. They sold houses, cars. I've got people that I look after that was living in their cars or in tents or in caravans on their friends and family's property. They'd sold their wedding rings, their engagement rings, other personal and sentimental jewellery. I think on top of that, I think the real stick in the throat is when you're accused of being a fraudster.
So just explain how that would have come about then, Jennifer, for some of the 3.8 million.
Okay, so for instance, an easy one is somebody denied furlough. Either they are in between jobs and they went back to their original job and asked to be furloughed by that company and they declined it, or they're in an existing company where the scheme was that the government would contribute 80% of the income to a maximum of £2,500 a month. Now, if your company is refusing you furlough, you obviously then say, okay, well, let's go to the government, see what welfare packages are out there for me. And there wasn't. Some people, I must make this very clear, a lot of people got zilch, zero. A few people, a proportion of the excluded, did manage to get universal credit. But a lot of people didn't qualify for universal credit, like myself. And just because your partner earns over the threshold, your bills don't halve, and a lot of people live to their means. You've also got maternity. The people that were on maternity, obviously when they finished their maternity leave, they weren't brought back into employment. In fact, Pregnant and Screwed are an amazing organisation. They took the government to judicial review, and they were very, very successful in bringing this to light. And yeah,
there's a lot of information, Jennifer, and a lot to talk, and loads and loads of people messaging in now and ringing in, and we really want to get through as many of these stories as possible because, as you rightly say, they're many and varied.
Oh, so many.
So thank you, Jennifer. I'm just going to talk now to a retired war veteran who was financially excluded from any COVID help. Thank you, Jennifer. Who is Cheryl Jones, looking absolutely smart in your uniform with all your medals there, Cheryl. Cheryl, just tell me your history and your story through COVID.
Carol, first of all, I want to thank you for letting me have my voice because it does mean a lot to me. So I retired in 2010 and I did 22 years. I served in Afghanistan, Iraq, Bosnia, but you know,
as part of the army, you were in the army, weren't you?
Yeah. As part of the army, I got to the rank of WO2. I was the most proudest person, and as you can see, I've got the medals. I wear my uniform with pride, and when I'm in this, I feel very confident, and I feel, you know, very proud that I served my country. So in 2010, I then obviously left the army, as you do at 22 years. And I set up my own pet sitting business. And I loved it. I did all the right courses. I did the HMRC, so I knew how to put all my taxes together.
Yep.
I set out my website. I did everything. And my business was successful. And you know what? One of the best jobs you can ever do is work with animals.
Yeah.
Honestly, it brought so much enjoyment to my life. And then obviously comes COVID. And, you know, I'm a very tough person. I, you know, just get on with it. This COVID thing came along. I thought, okay, let's just see what it entails, deal with it as it, you know, and I went with what the government was saying. You have to comply, shut down your business, all of that.
Yeah.
Obviously, I did all of that. And I thought, it'll be back in a couple of weeks. It'll be fine. I'm very positive. And it just never come back. And so then, obviously, it came to what we're going to do. Yeah. But then, as Jennifer said...
Because at this point, you had no income.
Yes, I had a small pension. But it wasn't enough to, if you automatically at 22 years, you get a small army pension, which is not index linked. And that doesn't happen till I'm 55, which was last year. So for 3 years, I was on the lowest income ever. However, it didn't allow me to be able to sign on. I couldn't get all of the benefits that is out there for people that, you know, were during this COVID, they could go and get universal credit, all of that. My few £100 that I was living on, I wasn't allowed. And so that's why I
had... So you couldn't get furlough, obviously, because you weren't employed as such, but you couldn't get the benefits that others could because you had this tiny income.
Well, I came under one of those. Yeah, I came under one of those, the 50% rule, and that was when it was the SEISS. They said all self-employment people could get this, and we were like, wow. I was like thankful because I couldn't survive on my small pension, because that's why I set up a business. You know, I had to work. I had a house to pay and all of that. Okay, so the 50% rule means you have to get 50% in your self-employment. Mine was 48%. My army pension was 52%, My self-employment was 48%. That meant I was not entitled. I know. And it was like, well, that's fine.
Lockdown.
It never came back, Carol. No. I mean, you know, I was positive and I thought, right, okay.
How are you now, Cheryl?
Well, when I obviously realised we wasn't, well, in fact, before I actually found out I wasn't getting any help, I went and helped the community anyway. I was in there doing the NHS. Absolutely. I look after, you know, my community, and we set up a thing called the Brinsworth Senior Support, and we ran that for about 6 to 8 months. So it took my mind off all of this thing. But I obviously realised that, you know, this is just an injustice. It was an injustice.
That's why this hour is very important.
Do you know one of the things, Carol, that actually has killed me is to be called a fraudster. I'm not a fraudster. I am not a fraudster. I've worked since I was 16. I did my 22 years. I set up a business. I paid my taxes. Like everybody else, I paid it. And just because of this technicality, I was called a fraudster. And it made me feel absolutely devastated. And I'm still devastated.
That they can off. And, you know, you're not. And I can see how upset you are. I can see how upset you are because you served the country. You were in the army for 22 years. You served in Bosnia, in Afghanistan, in Iraq. You did it as a service and a duty to this country. And we thank you for that, Cheryl.
Thank you.
And
thank
just,
you. Means a lot.
It's easy for me to say blank that people said that. Use the fraud word. You're not. You're patently, obviously not. And I hope this hour helps. And I hope that we can kickstart something. And even if it's an apology from whoever it was, you know.
It was the government, Carol.
Well, precisely. Then we want an apology from them. Absolutely. Maybe that's what we should be calling for. And Cheryl, thank you so much for telling us your story, and we will fight on. And if it is an apology that Cheryl needs, then I think whoever in the Department of Work and Pensions or wherever it is, I think they should apologise, don't you? Ring me if you have a COVID excluded story. 0345 6060 973. Text me or WhatsApp me on 84850. You're listening to Carol Vorderman. This is LBC. We're talking about the COVID excluded for this hour. The time is just gone 5:15.